Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we're going to be going through the two best CTPs for all 48 transcended characters, 44 of which I have on my roster. Now, the previous video for the best two CTPs recommendations for all tier 3s did not get 3,000 or 3,500 likes in 24 hours, so hopefully you guys will show out for this video. By the way, in general on YouTube, if you wonder why content creators ask you to like their video, it's because it helps the video get recommended to more people outside of the subscriber base, even people who've never seen the content creators videos before, my videos before. So it helps to grow the channel, make it bigger, grow the game, make the game bigger, and so that I can bring you guys more content for longer. So yeah, smash the like button if you enjoy the videos and you want to do that. If not, do your thing. Anywho, starting off with Chavez. Just quick reminder here before we get into her. I'm only doing 2 CTP recommendations instead of 3 because the video would take too long, and I'm not going to be recommending any of the bad CTPs. So no refinement, no transcendence, no patience, and no veteran, because that CTP doesn't actually exist for the vast majority of players. So for Chavez, she's actually not that good for PvE. However, she's surprisingly good for PvP because of reflect reduction, and she has iframe ignore. So a reforged regen, that's right, is actually my first recommendation. However, I'm not a big fan of recommending reforged CTPs right off the bat, so I would say only if you're like a die-hard Alliance Conquest type player would you even consider that. However, given her very good leadership for all allies, 30% attack and 6% dodge, you might want to give her an insight. So that's my second suggestion for the support abilities. Up next, we have Amadeus Cho, and although he has a bit of a wonky rotation, the chain hit damage is just too juicy to pass up on Atlas tactics. So my first recommendation is an energy, and then my second recommendation is Rage, because he really doesn't have any tools outside of PvE content to really do much else, and he doesn't have a good leadership or support for an insight, so it sort of leaves him without any other options. On the other hand, Aries actually has a solid lead. Again, just basic, all allies, 30% physical attack, a little bit less flexible than Chavez, but he doesn't really have any value outside of that. He's got low DPS, doesn't have any other support abilities, so insight is actually my first choice for Aries, you know, because Chavez can actually do a lot in PvP with the iframe ignore and the reflect reduction. Aries doesn't have any of those things, so he can't do those things. The healing is nice, but it just doesn't cut it for him. My second recommendation for Aries would be a Rage CTP to take advantage of the really nice 30% guaranteed crit rate buff that he gives himself for 7 seconds. So that's a really nice buff that'll synergize with a Rage, but yeah, he's not going to do much outside. Black Dwarf, on the other hand, Cull Obsidian, one of the best combat characters in the game, period. Energy is an amazing CTP for him. If you don't give him an energy, I would say think about building him for PvP and giving him something like a Mighty Regen. You could also try a Mighty Destruction instead of an energy, but they sort of interchange with each other. But yeah, the chain hit damage with the 5 cancel 4 cancel 3 combo, and you hold the 3 is just some of the juiciest whirlwinds you've ever seen. It's too much fun to pass up. Up next, Gilgamesh, maybe the best combat character in the game for PvP. He's either number 1 or number 2. He crushes spiders everywhere he goes, and he's a menace to them. Reforged Regen would be my best suggestion for you for him. You would actually prefer to get all attack, all defense instead of penetration, but they're both good. And then if you're not going to go with a Reforged Regen, I would say a Reforged Authority. I would just go pure PvP for this big bulky man. Make use of those juicy stat numbers. Up next, Hulkbuster, lots of buffs, support buffs for technokinetic allies, aka machine types, and then we got the nice leadership for all allies / Iron Man. He's actually surprisingly good for PvP with the counter, so I would say regen first, maybe a reforged regen. If not, if you're just going to transcend him for the leadership and maybe some of the extra buffs like the HP buffs and stuff for War Machine or Cable, then I would say slapping an insight on your Hulkbuster is actually not a bad move at all. Up next, we've got, I can't click, Iron Fist. Now, Iron Fist I think is best used with an energy, although it's a bit of a hard rotation. You could also try him with a Mighty Destruction, which could give you some dual PvE and some Conquest PvP action, because he does have that really nice 60% defenders leadership to take advantage of. Another defender here, Jessica Jones, part of the best defenders team with Luke Cage and Daredevil, and we'll be talking about Luke shortly. I would say an authority or a reforged authority is her best bet. If you're not going to do that, you could give her an insight as well, just so she can buff Luke and Daredevil's damage. Luke, on the other hand, you definitely want to give him a reforged regen, almost exactly the same as Gilgamesh, just not quite as strong, but he has the added buff of the reflect. So you want to beef up that HP, you want to make him reflect as much as possible. Otherwise, give him a reforged authority for tanking but the energy, the regen is going to be better than the authority. Up next, Moon Knight. I was thinking energy already because that's the best option for Moon Knight, is an energy, not a rage. I made that mistake before. If you're not going to go with an energy, I would say Reforged Destruction could replace an energy. But other than those two, I wouldn't really go with any other CTP. He doesn't really have PvP value. He's not really rocking anything else. Morbius, one of the few transcended characters that I don't have, is probably best for like low level World Boss Legend and stuff like that with a rage. However, you could give him a regen, and he has some value for Alliance Conquest. Not much, but it is a little bit better. Keep in mind, he has a decent lead for that kind of content, 30% HP to all allies. It's not bad, combined with his healing and stuff. It's okay. It can do something, but yeah, he doesn't really have any support buffs to justify an insight or something like that. Red Guardian, similarly, is best for, you know, low expectation PvE content with an energy. Otherwise, you could give him an authority to just be an annoying side piece character for Alliance Conquest and PvP action. And again, he's basically just got a slightly better version of Morbius's lead, but it only applies to hero allies. The nice thing about Red Guardian, he's got the flexibility of being either a hero or a villain. The combat class is stacked, by the way. 18 or 17 transcended characters. It's absolutely bonkers. 18 of them, the most by far of any of the 4 classes. Here we go with Sif. Rage is her best option because she's the best combat hero female for ABX, and then Insight would be her second best CTP because of her leadership, which is really clutch, and then her support passive on her uniform, which is also very, very good for all allies, heroes, villains, combats, blast, etc. Swordmaster is an interesting one here. He was very lackluster in PvE, and I actually would like to take that CTP of energy off of him. But if you have his artifact, which gives him iframe ignore, he's actually not terrible for PvP, Alliance Conquest. So I would recommend, if you want to go that route for Swordmaster, because he literally doesn't have anything else to offer for you offensively, I would go with either an authority or a regen, and you could consider reforging them. He's got a pretty good leadership for PvP, you know, HP and 50% all defense. It's a really big power creep on Morbius and Red Guardian. So yeah, he could actually surprise you in PvP in specific, you know, matchups here. Thing, on the other hand, is going to do one thing. He's going to support the Fantastic Four, so naturally you want to give a support character a CTP of Insight. So yeah, go ahead, Insight on him. If not, you could maybe give him a regen for some PvP action, but I think that's a distant second as far as the suggestions go. Valkyrie, like Sif, is best used for combat hero female ABX, so a rage is there, but if you're using Sif and you don't like switching, then you could switch the Insight to Valkyrie now because she's a very good support type for World Boss Ultimate, World Boss Legend, Squad Battle, ABX, GBR, the whole 9 yards. She's one of the best. Dispatch, the Dimension Rifts, one of the best support type characters in the game, so you cannot go wrong giving her an Insight. Second to last here, we've got War Tiger, who I also do not have transcended. One of the members of the four dragons. I can't remember their names. The what are they called? Why am I wasting time here? The Warriors of the Sky. My bad. Warriors of the Sky. For War Tiger, I would say Insight is probably your best bet just to buff the other members of the Warriors of the Sky, but you could give him an authority for some low-level PvP content, but he's not really going to blow you away. Last but not least, we have X-23. She's been since replaced by Sif, just like Valkyrie has, just like a lot of other combat female heroes have, but I still think Rage is the best option for her as a switch play. Otherwise, you could give her a regen, take advantage of that HP, and really boost her defenses for some low-level PvP conquest content. Jumping into the blast typing, we have Gambit to start us off, and Gambit is best used with an energy because of that crazy synergistic chain hit damage on his 5th skill, but we have found out through testing that a Reforged Destruction would also be an excellent option for him as the second best, a little bit more expensive, but also very hard hitting. Blue Dragon, on the other hand, like the Warriors of the Sky, is really only for PvP now and almost exclusively for Conquest. I would say a Destruction is best for her because of the penetration, and she can do that revive, hit you with the 6th skill to try to one-tap. Otherwise, I would say maybe an Authority, maybe a Reforged Authority. It's a little bit risky, a little bit expensive, but that could help her sort of survive a little bit longer. Human Torch, on the other hand, is going to be sort of pure PvE, so I would say either give him a Judgment, first of all, for CTP, or like a distant second would be a Rage. He just doesn't work well enough with an energy, and he doesn't really have any other properties or values that make him good for PvP. So it's really Judgment and then a long gap and then possibly a Rage. Invisible Woman, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. She's almost got no value for PvE or very little, but she's got very high value for PvP with invisibility, with charm, with all of these debuffs and buffs that can make her very, very annoying to deal with. So I would say if you wanted to build her high level and get a lot of value out of Invisible Woman, I would say give her an authority, a reforged authority, or the second suggestion would be maybe a reforged destruction. That could give her a little bit of flex hybrid value for both PvP and PvE, and it would be pretty interesting. Kingo, on the other hand, is basically straight rage. Outside of rage, I'm not sure what to recommend, sort of like Doctor Strange, but he doesn't have a good leadership to make an insight possible. So maybe an authority or a reforged authority. He has some PvP value, not much, but I say it's there with the bubble that allies can take advantage of and step into and heal from. But yeah, Moonstone, on the other hand, we're sort of flip-flopping from PvP to PvE and so on and so forth, is basically pure PvE. So I would say energy first for her, like Gambit, and then a reforged destruction second if you don't want to go the energy route, but just keep it, keep it offense only for characters like that. Red Skull, unfortunately, not good enough to take advantage of the Hero Hunter passive. You would think so, but yeah, he just doesn't have the stats and the other abilities, no iframe ignore, stuff like that, to really make it work. Maybe with another uniform in the future, he can. I would still say maybe a destruction for the first recommendation or a regen. He needs both the defenses of the regen and the penetration of the destruction. So I don't really have a good suggestion. It's kind of the same conundrum with someone like Captain Marvel, but I would not recommend reforging either of those. Rescue, on the other hand, is very, very good for PvP, one of the best. She's got an amazing leadership that gives you basically healing for free. It gives you a shield that's 50% of your max HP. It's very, very good. It's essentially a free heal leadership. So because she's so good, I would say if you want to build her for PvP, and then go with, first off, a reforged authority, and then if you can't do that, go with a reforged regeneration, because she has the healing and she has the bulk to make the steal of the authority work. So she's sort of flexible that way. Cersei can also go both ways, giggity. I would say energy is the first suggestion for her, and then a reforged authority is probably your second best bet. Some people think a reforged greed is good for her to just punch home the damage, but I think she has enough damage when she revives with illusion force. Just keep in mind, if you're going to build your Cersei for PvP, she must have the artifact. You should not build her for PvP. Do not equip a mighty authority or greed or whatever if she doesn't have the artifact. If she doesn't have the artifact, just build her for PvE, energy, or just wait on the artifact first. Second to last, we have Spectrum here. Spectrum is surprisingly good for PvP. She's got a lot of different weapons available to her, healing, iframe ignore, all this good stuff. Reforged authority would be a really good first option, and then a reforged regen would be a good second option. I sort of notice a pattern where when we narrow down which characters are just amazing picks for PvP, Silver Surfer, Gilgamesh, stuff like that, we immediately move to reforged CTPs. I don't necessarily like suggesting that first and second, but the reality is that some characters nowadays, because they're going up against the top of the top of the ladder for PvP, they're going against the biggest dogs. You can't really go in with a half build, right? You can build the character halfway for PvE because the bosses are predictable and you can dodge their attacks and switch out and do all this funny stuff. But for PvP, you can't. You're just face to face with your enemy and you got to take them down or they take you down. So the bar for entry, right, the expectations of how tanky you're going to be is a lot higher for PvP. And so that's why reforged CTPs are a lot more recommended as a first option for PvP characters. And I don't like recommending it so much for PvE characters, excuse me, because there are other options available. Last but not least, for the Blast class, we have Spider-Woman. I think Insight is the best for her to combat her, to combine her leadership for Spider Sense characters and the buffs that she's going to provide with the Insight for, Spider-Man, 2099, etc., Ben Reilly. Otherwise, you could give her a Judgment for the story mode fragment farming, because Spider-Woman is almost always featured. Like, I kid you not, every month you can go back and look. She's almost always featured at least once, and there she is twice this month. And I guarantee you, in a week, when they show us the new numbers, the new characters, she's gonna be there. We're gonna start off the speed types with Nightcrawler, the only speed type that I do not have transcended, and unlike Elsa, he doesn't even bring a good leadership to the table. I don't mean to make fun of characters or really drag them down, but Nightcrawler doesn't really do anything for you in PvE offensively, doesn't do anything for you in PvP defensively, and he's got no support buffs or leaderships or anything like that to make him worthwhile. So honestly, I hesitate giving you any CTP recommendations for him, but if I had to, I would say Insight, just to make him worth something on your roster, or maybe an Authority for the slight PvP value. But unlike Nightcrawler, Corvus has mega PvE value. He actually has some PvP value as well, so keep that in mind. Both of my CTP recommendations are PvE because he's just so good, one of the top speed villains, even though he's originally a universal villain. But yeah, energy is my first recommendation for him for like a overall well-rounded build that can climb in World Boss Legend and things like that. Rage is a little bit more specific if you want your Corvus to really push it in ABX, which is what I have built for him. But honestly, a third recommendation that I kind of need to say for Corvus because he's so good and people forget he has the revive is a Mighty Authority, or maybe a Mighty Regen. I'm not exactly sure which one, but a Reforged Authority or a Reforged Regen could make Corvus a really big pain in the butt for PvP content, and especially because he revives and pops Loyal Strike right away, the enemy's in for some big time trouble and some big time damage. Mystique, on the other hand, has sort of waned and sort of fallen in her value overall as better and newer speed villains come out. Rage, I think, is still the best option for Mystique just so she can deal damage because she's still, she can still hold her own. But as a big time support character with the Perfect Deception passive, it's hard not to recommend a CTP of Insight for her, and that is my second pick, and it's a very close second pick for Mystique. Up next, we have Arrow, and Arrow, I think, is best suited with an energy for some light, low-level PvE content. Actually, medium-level PvE content. I think she's better than some people gave her credit for when I did that initial review. If you don't give her an energy, I would say, and if you really wanted to push it with Arrow, you could give her a Mighty Destruction. I think that would actually make her flexible for both PvE and PvP, a little bit of a hybrid build, especially when you factor in her debuff removing artifact, which does also give her a buff. Bullseye still remains one of the best speed villains. Rage is definitely the pick for him, especially for squad battle and ABX. I honestly don't think there's a good second option, CTP, for Bullseye. I was going to say Insight, I was going to say Energy. Neither of those. I guess Insight suits him better than Energy. He's very hard to play without a Rage, and nothing else really suits him, and he has no PvP value, no iframe ignore, no healing, nothing, no damage reduction. He's like a piece of paper defensively. So yeah, it's kind of just Rage, and then a long gap, and then either Energy or Insight. Up next, we got Dr. Octopus, and I have no recommendations for Dr. Octopus. Why? Because like Spider-Man, he may be getting a rework, so you do not equip CTPs on characters before they possibly get reworks. Elsa, on the other hand, is so average, so below average. She's really not going to do anything for your roster other than be a leadership. So my suggestion for you, like Aries, would be a CTP of Insight. If you really wanted to make her work offensively, a Rage is probably, or an Energy is probably your best bet for her because she's got a pretty straightforward rotation with the 5th skill. Makari, on the other hand, is basically the best speed transcendent character in the game by a long shot. Energy is her best option for the most well-rounded character. Rage is only the suggestion here if you want to excel in ABX. And there actually isn't that much of a gap between an Energy and a Rage in ABX, especially if you can reforge your Energy. It can actually be very close to a Rage, but Rage just makes your procs easier. She can still, like, she's honestly so good that you can say Rage or Energy. Energy is going to just push you higher in World Boss Legend. Rage is going to be easier to play and going to push you a little bit higher in ABX. But either way, you're getting an absolutely bonkers level character. Silk, also very good, needs this uniform. Energy is the best option for her, but she's surprisingly good for PvP. So if you wanted to, you could give her a Reforged Authority. She has penetration already on her 5th skill. And a heal, she's actually not bad with the guaranteed dodge and guaranteed crit and everything. So yeah, she's actually surprisingly good for PvP if you wanted to go that route for her. Another one of the Spider Sense characters, Spider Gwen, probably best used with an Energy. If you're not going to give her an Energy, then probably best used with a Rage. Not going to have nearly as much PvP value as Silk does. Sunbird, like the other Warriors of the Sky, destruction meta first, because when you get that revive, you pop that Searing Flame, and you need that penetration. If not, then I would say go with an Authority, maybe Reforge it if you're really feeling frisky, to give him a better ability, better hope to tank some more damage and get off another transcended skill. Wave as a amazing leadership slash support with Ride the Current and Wrath of the Waves is like Insight meta written all over her. However, some people give her a Rage, so that's my second suggestion, because she helps cancel for ABX if you're still using Luna Snow. And then last but not least, we have Yelena Belova, featured in Hawkeye. Energy is the best option for her overall, but she's surprisingly good in PvP, especially with this suit, because of her iframe ignore and her, you know, high damage or accumulation, things like that. So you could actually give her a reforged regen. And finally, we come to the transcended universal type characters, by far the smallest list, with only 6 available characters right now that you can transcend as universals, unless you count Cull Obsidian and Corvus without their uniforms. Starting off with Supergiant, I'm not going to forget her on another list ever again. Judgment is by far the best option for her. If you want to get a little bit freaky with her, however, you could try a Rage for ABX, or I would actually suggest, because she's surprisingly good for PvP with damage reduction and iframe ignore and healing and mind control, a Reforged Authority. Yeah, Supergiant can actually be really good for PvP with a Reforged Authority, and she falls into the rare category of universal villain, so she does have a lot going for her buff wise, and she dodges a lot of the other buffs that other characters or other factions have against, you know, heroes and things like that. So she's actually very, very good for PvP. But yeah, Judgment is by far the best option for her. Then we have Beta Ray Bill. Energy is by far the best thing for him because of the chain hit damage, but like a lot of other characters that Energy works for, a Reforged Destruction would be a great second option. I do not recommend Judgment. I tried it on Beta Ray Bill. It is very disappointing. I do not recommend it under any circumstances. Heimdall's up next, and with his artifact specifically, he can be very good for PvP. Without it, I would say you're probably best off giving him an energy or a Mighty Destruction. However, I would say save the Mighty Destruction for when you have the artifact, because the Mighty Destruction on Heimdall plus the artifact gives you a very good hybrid character for both mid-level PvE content and, you know, mid to high level PvP content, which is quite nice and quite flexible. Medusa, one of the only good Inhumans in the game. I would probably say Rage is best for her, although she's fallen off a lot and slowed down a lot since her initial transcendence. Second best pick, I think, is Insight, if you want to make her a good support for Black Bolt and any future Inhumans that come to the game that she can support and buff up with her, because she already has a support buff and a leadership with Queen's Gaze and Merciful Queen. Then we have second to last Quasar here. Quasar is actually really good and very easy to play with an energy with lots of canceling, so that's my first pick for her at PvE content. My second pick, because of her very, very good passive, the guaranteed dodge, and this one here with the debuff and the shield is actually a Reforged Regen for PvP. I think she can be a really nice character either way you build her. Just depends on where you want to lean. And then last on the list here, but not last in our hearts here, the Gothic Shadow Shell. Like the other Warriors of the Sky, you want to give her a Destruction for the penetration. If not the Destruction, then you could actually give her a regen because she already has accumulation, but that's kind of a distant second for PvP. So that's the list of all 48 transcended characters with their top 2 CTP selections. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.